Oh, do you want to do it the other way? Let's do it the other way. Okay. Hold on one sec. I'm sorry. Him and I have not been together in the studio for a while. It's my fault. Stand by. Let me just reset this and we'll get going. It's almost here. Loading, loading. Okay. 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 Take two.
Are you aging? Do you have a parent who's aging? Is 60 the new 80 or is 80 the new 60? How about taking control of your health and well-being? We have a guest today who's going to help explain that to us here on St. Louis in Tune. Well, greetings, listeners in Listenerland. Welcome to St. Louis in Tune, and thank you for joining us for fresh perspectives on issues and events with experts, community leaders, and everyday people who are driving change and making an impact that shapes our society and world. Show is co-hosted by myself, Arnold Stricker, and Mark Langston, and we're glad that you're joining us today because we have Dr. Roseanne Leipzig. She is an internationally recognized physician in the field of geriatrics. She's transforming the way we approach aging individually and as a society. And in her 40-plus year career, she's treated thousands of patients and trained hundreds of doctors in all specialties of medicine. She is the Gerald and May Ellen Ritter Professor and Vice Chair Emerita of the Brickdale Department of Geriatrics and Palliative Medicine at the Icahn School of Medicine at Mount Sinai in New York City.
Wow.
And she received her MD and PhD in human genetics from the University of Michigan. She's received numerous awards, and I'm going through this lengthy bio because it's important. She is an expert in the field. Numerous awards: Best Doctors in America, Woodward White, Inc., America's Top Physicians, Consumer Research Council of America, New York Times Super Doc, one of New York Magazine's top doctors for geriatric medicine. She's appeared on the Today Show, CBS Evening News, Sunday Morning CBS, CNN AARP webinars, published in Time Magazine, the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, AARP Magazine, Consumer Reports, and she's published over 100 scientific articles, 2 groundbreaking books of geriatrics, and the one we're talking to her today about is her latest one, Honest Aging, An Insider's Guide to the Second Half of Life, was published in January of this year by Johns Hopkins University Press. Dr. Leipzig, welcome to St. Louis in Tune.
Wow.
Well, thank you very much. That was quite an introduction.
Well, you're quite the physician.
I was thinking the same thing, Doctor.
And just to let people know, she's going to be appearing at the St. Louis Jewish Book Festival, and that will be next week. And I will give you more information on that as we go through. But the book is just unbelievable. And as you know, Mark and I are, we're the same age. We went to high school together, and we both are of that age where this book is actually a really good one.
And I like the big print, the extra large print. I appreciate that.
So I guess my first question is, in what ways have you, because I mentioned this, have you and are you continuing to transform how we approach aging individually and collectively? What does that mean, and what does that put legs on that for us?
Sure. We live in an incredibly ageist society. You just have to pick up the paper where everybody's debating if the 3 years difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump really makes a difference or not. Okay. And can either of them run this country at this point in time?
That's a great question. We could probably do a whole show on that question alone. I'm sorry, Doctor. Go ahead.
Or, look on TV at how older people are being portrayed. I have a friend who loves birthday cards. He's a clinical psychologist, and he uses those to kind of get a sense of how our society looks at different ages. It's not pretty, okay? So we have to work against that ageism, which is not just in our society, but we have it in ourselves. We're afraid to say how old we are, okay? It's like something bad will happen if people know how old you are. And yet, we are so lucky to be able to live this long.
Absolutely.
It's the first time in history, okay? You get 20 to 40 years after you've retired or the kids are gone. It's a whole new life. And we need to be looking at it through a positive lens. And there are people who have looked at this. There's a wonderful clinical psychologist, I like those people, at Yale, Becca Levy. And she has looked at what happens if you have a negative perception of aging and what happens if you have a positive one as you age. And you take that negativity with you into old age. People with a positive point of view live, 7.5 years longer, and they live better. They're able to do more than people who have a negative image. We all have to really work individually and as a society to change what we think aging is. We're in denial.
And you got some of that from your grandmother, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. My grandmother lived with us when I was a kid. She had colon cancer. And in those days, it was a messy business, okay? Much better now than then. So she lived with us for about 7 years. And despite those sorts of problems, she was vibrant. She would go out to her Jewish community center, actually, and she would have a friendship club there. She made us challah all the time. She volunteered. And if you were to ask her what it was like to get older, she would say you're only as old as you let yourself feel. And I think that's really the bottom line. We have a lot of control over certain parts of our aging. Obviously, there are things we do not have control over. But how we respond to them is something we do have control over.
Now you have I'm kind of outlining a little bit of your book. You have the book is in 3 parts for listeners. It's Aging 101, and then you talk about what really matters as you grow older, and then the difficult decision. And I found that the Aging 101 is like, it's where you talk about normal versus non-normal aging, and you're building a scaffold to hang the rest of the book on. So could you kind of go into a little bit about normal versus non-normal aging? Because you get specifically in part 2 of the what really matters, and you get into some things which I'll talk about in a second here.
Okay. So I think of normal aging as things that happen to almost everybody as they get older. It's not always in the same order at the same time, but most of these things are going to happen. So, for example, you're going to be getting reading glasses when you're in your 40s, okay? Your hearing is going to get worse as you get older. You're going to walk more slowly. Your arms are going to get flabby, and you'll have a pot belly because the way in which fat is distributed in the body changes as you get older. You have senior moments, and everybody's worried about those. Want to talk more about that? We can. You become more sensitive to medications. You need lower doses. Sometimes you need different medications. Some medications that you've been taking for years and years and years, you need to decrease the dose of. You urinate more at night, whether you've got a prostate or not. Okay, it's a very bad joke that gets played on us.
Right.
The way that diseases present and the way that symptoms occur can be different.
Can I add that? Can I add that my ears get bigger too? Why?
Well, everything sags.
Everything sags. Okay. Sorry.
No, I like that.
Yeah, it's true. Everything does sag. I'll go south.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, doctor. Go ahead.
That's okay. It's all right. So, people talk about how much water you should have, and they tell you that, if you're thirsty, that means you're dehydrated and you need to drink water. But as you get older, you don't get thirsty at the same amount of dehydration as you do when you're younger. And so with the weather being as it has been these last several years, a lot of people are getting dehydrated and having heat stress and heat diseases because they're not drinking enough because they don't feel thirsty. So as one of my patients said, take a look in the toilet bowl, see how concentrated that urine looks. That's a good way of having a sense as to whether you're drinking enough or not. So those are just some examples. There are lots.
Yeah, I found that fascinating as you were talking about that, and you get into that in the book, that we think everything should be like staying the same, some kind of stasis. Especially what kind of was enlightening to me was the medication thing, that we may not need the same kind of dosage of medication as we get older. And you give an example of how one of your patients went into the emergency room and was you were having a little back and forth with the attending physician at the time. It was this patient who was having some nauseated and belly pain, and you were trying to explain to them what they needed to do. If you could go into that, because I think it's important too that as we get older, we need to have a physician who specializes in geriatric medicine also.
And even if they don't specialize, they need to know the difference.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this was one of my patients who had very bad nausea and vomiting, and they were residents, actually. They weren't the attending physician, but they wanted to send her home because when they palpated her belly and tried to see if it was tender or anything, she had no tenderness. So they figured it was nothing to worry about and she could go home. But older people, that's not unusual. You can have a perforated gallbladder and have an absolutely benign belly. Okay. Yeah, I had a friend with that happened to, and keeping her in the hospital was hard because she didn't believe she had that kind of a problem, although she felt rotten. Her belly didn't feel bad. So I said to them, just get some imaging of the belly so that you can see what's going on. And when they finally did that, they saw an incredible infection that needed surgery to clean her out. She was in the hospital for a couple of weeks. Now, if she'd gone home and just thought, well, this is what's going to happen, and didn't go back, she wouldn't have lived. So it's really important. Heart attacks are similar, okay? When you're 50% of people who are having a heart attack don't have chest pain or pressure. You know, they get short of breath, they may get confused, they may feel faint. But that thing that we always think about, the elephant on your chest, that's not happening for most of the people who are 80 and older.
That's very interesting. Why is that?
Yeah.
No good answer. The feeling is probably that our pain receptors are less sensitive as we get older, particularly the ones around the organs, which is why you don't feel the perforated gallbladder or the heart attack. But we're not sure.
And one of the things you do in part 2 is you get into, it's entitled What Really Matters as You Grow Older, and you talk about, cognition, energy, emotions, mobility, sleep, urine trouble, eyes and ears, aches and pains, gut feelings, GI, weight, and sex. And I think what you do here is it's like a manual. It has advice for loved ones, resources, you have tips, you have explanations with examples and even some drawings, and you give a bottom line, which I think helps people understand, like, hey, what I'm going through is fine, or no, I probably need to call my doctor about this. So why these areas, or are these kind of the areas that you've always kind of seen in patients as you've been treating them for your career?
Well, they are things that people do tend to come to me for. They're also something that we tend to call geriatric syndromes as opposed to a disease. And the reason for that is that all of these have more than one cause. You usually think, oh, I have pain here, it's because of this, or I have a cold, it's because of this virus. But, when you're 80 years old, you've had a lot of time to have a lot of things happen.
Right.
So they can contribute to the symptoms that you're having. So we need to figure out all the things that are contributing. We may not be able to cure you, but we can make you a lot better. And actually, in the back of the book, I put in these checklists for you to go through before you see your doctor that have all of the things to think about that can be causing these symptoms. That gives them a head start.
Yeah, those are some I'm looking at that, folks. There's some appendices here, and what Dr. Leipzig has are questions, and it's just like she said, it's checklist here. And is that something that you would take to your physician then and present that to them, or would they be offended that, gee, where'd you get this, and why are you doing that? Because I know some
Well,
physicians might be a little testy about it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think we are trying to train physicians to be patient-centered, okay, and
Good
to have a
bedside
conversation
manner.
about
Yeah.
the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. What really matters to you as the patient. But you might want to say, I thought, I had this problem. I saw this book, and they said all of these things might contribute. So I just wanted you to know what's going on with me. Maybe that'll help us figure out what we can do something about.
Your section 3 is on making difficult decisions, and these are things that, and I'll let you explain that, because some of it deals with driving, some of it deals with extended care, some of it deals with end of life kinds of termination and things like that. Would you briefly go into that section?
Sure. I have found that there are certain areas, there are several areas, but these are three that people really have a hard time dealing with, and their families have a hard time dealing with it. So one is, who's going to speak for you if you are in a position that you can't speak for yourself? Because we all have strong feelings about different things. And if you are so sick that you can't say what it is you want, you really need to have an advocate. And don't just name someone. Tell them, number one. I mean, I've had the situation where I've called someone and said, "Did you know that they're a healthcare proxy?" No, I had no idea.
Wow.
Kind of. Yeah. And tell them what matters to you, because it's very hard as a healthcare proxy to put yourself out of the situation and say, "This is what my loved one wants. It's not what I want. It's what they want." And if you tell them what you want, it's much more likely to happen. So that's one piece. Driving is, I live in New York. It's not such a big problem here.
Mm-hmm.
But in the rest of the country, driving is a big problem. And, driving is independence. When we were 16 and we got our licenses, we were out of there. We were able to do what we wanted. And it's very concerning. People feel the rest, that they're dependent on other people. And families don't know how to deal with this either. So I try and give tips. Number one, why it's so important. And some tips, just simply, if you can afford it, upgrade your car. There are all of these new safety features that don't exist in older cars that can really make you a safer driver. And also to try and figure out what it costs to keep a car. Because with Ubers and Lyfts and these sorts of things, you can go take a lot of trips before you come up to what you're paying for your insurance and the gas and everything else, the servicing of your car. So it's ways to try and think about, if I can't drive, what could I do? And think about it before you get to that point, because we're all going to get to that point.
That's true.
Yeah. And the third is moving. Should I move or should I not? And this is something that oftentimes the kids have a lot more trouble with. The parents are happy where they are. They want to stay. And the kids see lots of problems with them being where they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's the biggest thing here, and with any of these discussions, is really for people to hear each other. Are you concerned? What is it you think is going to happen? And why do you want to stay here? Why is it so important? And to try and figure out a compromise that'll work for both of you. Because we're kidding ourselves if we think it doesn't affect the other person.
This is Arnold Strick with Mark Langston of St. Louis in Tune. We're talking to Dr. Roseanne Leipzig. She is a trailblazer in the field of geriatrics, and I can't recommend this book enough. Honest Aging: An Insider's Guide to the Second Half of Life. I will give this to my kids.
Oh yeah.
And
Pass it along.
Yes, and I think people who are 60 and older need to read this, and they need to give a copy to their kids. And I don't know what your philosophy is on that, Dr. Leipzig, but that's kind of mine.
Can I ask about doctors? I have the same. I do. I have the same MD. Is he equipped to help me age? Do you think? I mean, it seems to me
It's
like
hard.
some doctor. I'm sorry to interrupt. Some doctors seem like they may be pigeonholed into just one way that they do things. But you make a good point that doctors should be able to deal with me in a more of a geriatric way, as an age way, and I'm
Yeah.
not sure if they're sympathetic towards that.
Well, I think some are and some aren't. Okay. We're trying to teach everybody who's going through medical school residency, who are in practice, what we've learned over the past 30, 40 years. Some of them have heard it and some haven't. But I think the thing to realize is your health and your care is in service of your being able to do what you want to do. It's not having a perfect hemoglobin A1C. It's not having a perfect blood pressure if the medications are causing you a problem. It's really what matters to you. And as you get older, we know less about what the benefits are and what the risks are of some things that are just, written in stone for younger people. Because older people were not in the studies. And older people who had other disorders certainly weren't in the studies. So
Fascinating.
I think, our way of thinking what we should be doing is changing. And you see it in things like the Preventive Services Task Force, which I had the honor to serve on. And we said, colonoscopy, 85, that's probably the end. Because it takes another 10 years for something that wasn't there then to grow and cause a problem. And in that 10 years, so many other things could get you.
Right.
It's unlikely, that it's going to be colon cancer.
Good point. Okay. Good point. Never thought about it. Never considered that. Yeah.
Dr. Leipzig's going to be at the St. Louis Jewish Book Festival on the 16th of November. That's next Thursday. We're actually recording this earlier. And if you want information on that, go to jccstl.com, jccstl.com. And her website, your website is unbelievable too. You got a ton of information on there. I was having fun going through all that information on there. Her website is rosannemd.com, rosannemd.com. Last question. What is the most common question that you get from patients about aging?
Am I developing dementia? I forgot this. And I have an answer which is simplistic, but I think it helps. And it goes back to that senior moment that we were talking about as being normal. So in a senior moment, you look at the actor on TV and you're like, oh God, what's his name? I know his name. Or I had this the other day. I was thinking I have a nephew who's in VC, and I could not remember for the life of me what VC stood for. Okay, it's venture capital. And later on, it came to me, and now I can pull it out. Right? That if you're able to pull it out, or if somebody tells you and you keep remembering it, that is not dementia. That is a senior moment because you stored the information when you heard it. And you have a problem getting it back out again, okay? The problem with dementia is you don't store it. So you can't get it back out. And that's why people ask the same question over and over and over again.
Fascinating.
And it really is. And the other thing to realize is that if you don't hear it, it's not going to get stored. If you don't see it, it's not going to get stored. Or if you don't smell it, if you don't get enough sleep, because that's where you consolidate these memories, it's not going to get stored. So there are things that you can do, and medications, of course, can screw up your memory as well.
Yeah, you talk about using all of your senses, especially as you get older, to help store those memories in. And I thought that was an excellent point that you made there. And it makes perfect sense to me because we kind of peg things and, memory pegs and smells and locations and things we see and way people look and name associations and things like that.
Right. They all help us to get those things back out again.
The book, again, is Honest Aging, An Insider's Guide to the Second Half of Life. Take control of your health and well-being by Dr. Rosanne Leipzig. She's a MD and PhD. I really appreciate the time that you've been able to give to us today. And folks, if you can get to the St. Louis Jewish Book Festival on the 16th of November, jccstl.com to get some tickets. This is a great book, Dr. Leipzig. Again, I highly recommend it to anybody who's kind of, pushing 60 and over and giving it to their kids to read, and maybe sit down and having some honest conversations about health at the time, currently, and then what's going to be going on in the future.
Absolutely. We are, of deniers, and we need to come out as old.
Yes, we are. I'm still 30.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm 72 and a half.
Touche, doctor.
She's being honest. We're not being honest.
No, I know. I'm a big fat liar. Okay.
Dr. Leipzig,
right.
Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, doctor.
Bye-bye.
Safe travels.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Mark, this book, I started reading it and I was like, it's full of just, I don't want to say common sense, but it's common sense kinds of things that you wouldn't know. Like, if it's kind of like going to WebMD in your hands here, but it's better than WebMD because WebMD does things. It sends you to this thing and it freaks you out. And she lays things out and goes, no, this is kind of normal.
Yeah.
Or these are things you can expect. Or she talks about hearing, how we hear. And then she has pictures of, how we actually hear and what's going on and what we hear and what the brain's doing and what happens when we age with our hearing and how to adapt to a new normal and red flags, what to if you have a sudden loss of hearing, what's going on. And so she goes into all these kinds of things in here and in all these areas. It's just, I can't get enough of the book.
I love it. I like that kind of information.
Yeah.
Or kind of explains so I can see what's going on and understand what's going on.
Yeah. And serious about giving it to the kids.
Yeah.
Because it's like stuff in there for them. Like, hey, when, dad gets out there and, okay, what are we going to do here? Okay.
Why is dad slobbering?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So, folks, we're going to take a break and we'll be right back. You're listening to St. Louis in Tune with Arnold Stricker and Mark Langston on the U.S. Radio Network. This is Arnold Stricker of St. Louis in Tune on behalf of the Dred Scott Heritage Foundation. In 1857, the Dred Scott decision was a major legal event and catalyst that contributed to the Civil War. The decision declared that Dred Scott could not be free because he was not a citizen. The 14th Amendment, also called the Dred Scott Amendment, granted citizenship to all born or naturalized here in our country and was intended to overturn the U.S. Supreme Court decision on July 9, 1868. The Dred Scott Heritage Foundation is requesting a commemorative stamp to be issued from the U.S. Postal Service to recognize and remember the heritage of this amendment by issuing a stamp with the likeness of the man Dred Scott. But we need your support and the support of thousands of people who would like to see this happen. To achieve this goal, we ask you to download, sign, and share the one-page petition with others. To find the petition, please go to dredscottlives.org and click on the Dred Scott Petition Drive on the right side of the page. On behalf of the Dred Scott Heritage Foundation, this has been Arnold Stricker of St. Louis in Tune.
At St. Louis in Tune, we strive to bring you informative, useful, and reflective stories, as well as interviews about current and historic issues and events that involve people, places, and things. We cover a wide range of topics, such as the arts, crime, education, employment, faith, finance, food, health, history, housing, humor, justice, and sports, and that's just to name a few. While St. Louis in Tune originates from the Gateway City and covers local topics, we also connect to what's going on nationally as well. If you missed any of our previously aired programs of St. Louis in Tune, simply visit stlintune.com. That's stlintune.com. There you'll find the show notes and everything that was mentioned in that episode and all the other great episodes as well. And if you've got an area that you'd like us to examine deeper, well, just let us know by dropping us a note at stlintune@gmail.com. That's stlintune@gmail.com. St. Louis in Tune. It's heard Monday through Friday on the USRadioNetwork.com and many great radio stations around the U.S. and, of course, right here in St. Louis. Our website again is STLintune.com. Visit us today. That's STLintune.com. Call before midnight tonight.
That's right. Call it 1201.
Yeah. Call now. Okay.
Welcome back to St. Louis in Tune. This is Arnold Stricker with Mark Langston. Had an opportunity recently to sit down with Nina Ferrigno. She's the executive director and founder of the Missouri Chamber Music Festival, and they have a big trivia night coming up, and we're going to listen to that. Nina Ferrigno, she is founding member of the Boston-based Calyx Piano Trio. She's also been a featured soloist with the St. Louis Symphony Orchestra, Boston Pops, Boston Modern Orchestra Project, and has appeared at Tanglewood, the Carolina Chamber Music Festival, amongst many others. She's the founder and director of the Missouri Chamber Music Festival, which just completed its 13th season and is on the teaching faculty of Washington University here in St. Louis and Webster University. Nina, welcome back to St. Louis in Tune.
Hi, Arnold. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Now, you just completed a successful 13th season. What are some highlights that jump out to you?
Oh, it was a great season. Our programming was what really stands out for me is the first concert of the in which had Bryce Dessner's Murder Ballades. And that was just a really inventive piece and mixed instrumentation. We had percussion and clarinet and bass clarinet and flute and strings and piano. And it was just it was very exciting.
I think that's one we talked about before the season began when you were on last time, that you were kind of looking forward to that one.
Yes. And it was definitely a dream realized to be able to get that to the concert stage. We also had done a piece that Debussy had written for narrator, and it was the Chanson de Billetis. And actually, in its original form, it should have had a mime and narration. And then this very feminine ensemble of 2 harps and 2 flutes and celeste. And that was how we ended our season, actually, season 13. And that was really interesting performance.
That instrumentation sounds like something Debussy would do.
Yes.
That kind of ethereal sound. I'm not saying he does that all the time. It's that kind of, that instrumentation really rings to that in my mind and my ear.
And the subject of all the poetry was Sapphic Greek poems about love between 2 women. And so it was like the whole thing was very interesting.
The 14th season coming up, what I'd like to do is talk about your November 10th event. And that is in kind of a kickoff for your 14th season. I want to talk about the 14th season. And then you have something here, the Adult Chamber Music Intensive, that I'd like for you to talk about that people can get on their calendar. So let's talk about this November 10th event. It's the Game Changers Trivia Night. So talk a little bit about, it's not going to be a regular trivia night, is it?
It is, in essence, but we've made it a theme around the thematic programming of season 14. So we're interpreting that for the purposes of trivia night by having things be around our favorite games and board games and things like that. And so we're having a pretty wide range of trivia categories. And did I mention there's a silent auction, which will have some really, I think, unique to our chamber music festivals, unique to us in that we'll have some house concerts and some experiences that will be on auction. But we will have music-related questions, and we'll do some side games. You can purchase mulligans. There's a wine pull.
Now, what's a wine pull? I've been to a lot of trivia nights, but I've never experienced a wine pull.
Oh, a wine pull is great. So we have a table of wines where each wine is, you can't see the labels of the bottles, and it's $15. And you just grab a bottle. And the one thing, you don't know what you're going to get. We have it differentiated by red and white. But one thing you know for sure is that you're not getting a bottle of wine that's valued at less than $15. Everything is on there is at least $15. Some really nice bottles in there too, going up to $80. So you could be enjoying quite a nice beverage with your brought food for the evening.
I guess I was visualizing a cork pull versus the wine pull. That how
Oh.
fast can you pull the cork out? Or so I love what was written about the trivia night. Whether you feel you have a monopoly on great answers, are willing to risk it all with wild guesses, or haven't a clue, you and your team will have a great time at this fast-paced event. The team with the best board game inspired table will win a highly rated new board game to keep the fun and teamwork going long after the Missouri Chamber Music Festival trivia night is over. And folks, tickets are $25 per person or $200 for a table of 8. Bring your own refreshments, bottled water provided, no password needed to purchase. Simply click the link to secure your space. Reserve your table now, or you may be troubled to find it sold out. So how do people get in touch with getting a space?
If you head on over to our website, which is mochambermusic.org, the landing page will give you a link to purchase tickets. So that's all that information is there. And yeah.
And this is a fundraiser for you guys to bring in internationally acclaimed artists and musicians to perform some of the music that you have. So highlight a little bit about what the 2014 season will be. The 14th season and the 2024 season.
24, right. That's right. So it is season 14, and we're calling it Game Changers and Music of Our Surrounding. Most of the programs are devoted, most of the composers featured on each concert are in some way groundbreaking composers whose effect, either through innovating a new compositional style or a new instrumentation, had just long-lasting effects on either performers or composers who came after them. I'd like to highlight the last concert of the 14th season, which is our 4th concert on Saturday, June 21st. And that's going to feature the world premiere of MOCAM commissioned work by Florent Gis, and it's called Experiments in Augmented Banality. So we are taking a look at how we express what's happening in our surroundings, physical surroundings. Also featured on that concert is a piece by Caroline Shaw called Thousand Orange, in which she's fascinated with this idea of artists, visual artists who've painted how many still lives of how much fruit over how many hundreds of years,
Right.
and how that kind of gets, how do we see something fascinating and new in this everyday object or this everyday thing. And culminating, that concert is all leading up to Pierrot Lunaire, Arnold Schoenberg's seminal, groundbreaking 12-tone work. And we're joined on that concert by the soprano Jana Beatty, who is someone that I've worked with a long time from my Boston days. And she is currently a professor of voice at Yale. And so she's coming out to join us for that concert. Other concerts, and that concert will be a free event held at the Mildred Lane Kemper Art Museum. And there's so many things I'm excited about in season 14, including our MOCAM morning music concert, which will be, I'm working backwards here now,
you're good.
Wednesday, June 19th at the Des Lee Concert Hall at the 560 Music Center, part of Washington University. And we'll be doing music of Brahms and Stravinsky and Missy Mazzoli. We're also featuring on our second concert, which is Thursday, June 13th, works of Robert Schumann and then Gabriella Lena Frank. And Schumann's piano quintet, which is what will be on that concert, was the first, Schumann was the first one to think of putting a piano with a string quartet.
Really?
And yeah, and this whole genre of chamber music was born out of that, his great good idea. And featured on that concert is Gabriella Lena Frank's piano quintet, which is called Ghost in the Time Machine. And it's a really great work. And kicking off our season is Monday, June 10th. And we're going to be featuring string quartet music of Haydn and Caroline Shaw.
Wow. Got a big
So
lineup.
Yes. And also featured on that first concert, kicking us off, is songs by Johannes Brahms being sung by the Italian mezzo Benedetta Orsi. And Benedetta was featured on season 13, and it was she's amazing. And so we're super excited to have her come back.
Do you have, maybe it's the wrong wording, but do you have difficulty or challenges in getting artists to come in, or because of the reputation? This is most likely because of the reputation of the Missouri Chamber Music Festival. People are, yes, I would really like to be involved with that next season. Is that how you approach these things, or what's the way that you gather the artists and the performances of what you're going to do?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's this organic process of, yes, all of the above.
Gotcha.
So it starts with a vision of the season, a vision of the music, but that for me is never far from who is on stage doing these things. It's asking whether certain key people can be involved, whether their schedules will allow for the trip to St. Louis, or even with our local people, whether their schedules allow for them to be able to rehearse and do those concerts, and then getting it all tweaked. It's like starting with a big circle, and it gets narrower and narrower until we finally lock it all down with people, places, and pieces.
Gotcha. Now, I found this adult chamber music intensive. It reminded me of adult chamber music camp. And
yes.
And I guess that would be how you would lay that out. But that's going to be in next summer, July 29th to August 3rd. And
that's right.
Deadline's coming up April 3rd. Talk about that a little bit, because I found that very interesting. I guess if you play and you have a group or you could be in a group, this is how this would work.
Yes, absolutely. So this has always been a program of Missouri Chamber Music Festival. So this will be our 14th year of having Acme, which we like to call it. And yes, so we initially joked that it was like a chamber music dating site. We were trying to get people, if you played an instrument and you wanted to collaborate, but you didn't really have a network of getting together with people, this would be a great thing to try, because you could come on in and get paired up with different instrumentalists and have a week of full chamber music immersion. So we have faculty presentations, and we have this thing which we have master classes throughout the week. So you come to the camp ahead of time what piece you are playing, and you know who you're playing with and who your coach is going to be. But once there, during the week, you can just read chamber music with all of the participants. And so sometimes what comes out of that is that you've got people saying, hey, this was really great. We started this on Monday and we'd really like to play it for someone on Wednesday and then do it in a concert on Friday. We offer a lot of opportunity to collaborate, have fun, play chamber music, learn new things. We have faculty presentations that are about practicing, or we even had one a few years ago that was done regarding improvisation and getting out of your score, feeling free to make things up. And it's just such a fun week, really.
How important is that interaction and collaboration, and how well people get along in the performance of chamber music?
I think it's very important. Definitely when you're talking about so-called amateur musicians who are not relying on these concerts for their income or their livelihood, it's just all about having fun and communicating and trying new things. And then when you're in a professional setting, it doesn't have to be so personal in terms of, I don't have to love on a personal level the people I'm working with, but to be able to really feel very sympathetic and feel like I know them in a very special way when we're listening to each other and making music together and making those musical decisions together. It's to be able to build that sense of community in a very first rehearsal is just priceless for then having really exciting and interesting performance for all involved.
Yeah, 'cause I could see that professionally. You're here to do a job, and you're a professional musician, but man, if you really understand the other person and you get along very well, it would seem to me, aside from the professionalism, that the music would be much more, I don't know, intense, flowing, free, true.
Yeah.
I may be
Yeah.
wrong with that, but because
No,
professionals are
it's
professionals.
right.
You do the job.
Absolutely. And I think that's what's so exciting about chamber music, that when you are collaborating on that level with people, you find my favorite performances are the ones where we all went out and something new happens that hadn't happened before, and you all can feel it, and we definitely feed off of the energy of the audience, and it's just, yeah, it's a really vibrant art form and something I've devoted my life to, and I just, yeah, want more people to be bit by the chamber music bug.
Well, folks, get bit by the chamber music bug, first of all, by going to the November 10th Trivia Night Game Changers, and that's going to be at the Heights in Richmond Heights, Friday, November 10th from 6 to 9:30 p.m. You can get more information at mochambermusic.org, mochambermusic.org. Nina, thanks for coming on and talking about this, and let's get together again before the season and discuss again your insights as people have practiced. And you mentioned everything that was going to happen on season 14, but I know let's give a big crescendo into the season and get that going. Okay.
I love it. Thank you so much, Arnold. I really appreciate being able to talk about Trivia Night.
Oh, good. And the Heights is a great place to hold an
It's
event.
a wonderful event. Space. Yeah.
It really is.
I've been to
right there at Dale and Hanley Road.
Hanley, right? Yeah.
Or you come
kind of down there in the
the swamps. No.
Yes. It's a great facility for trivias.
Oh yeah, that place opens way up there, so you can get to it, I guess, from Big Bend too. But Hanley and 40 right there,
right?
Just kinda,
right. Friday, November 10th. So for more information, go to mochambermusic.org, mochambermusic.org, and that's 6 to 9:30 p.m. So a great night there. The wine pull, which I had no clue about, obviously. Mulligans, know about those 50-50 raffle, surprise performances, silent auction.
No labels on that wine.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. Of course, sometimes they'll put the cork cover. There'll be a little thing there. So
kind of give it away.
Right.
Sneak something in there.
Or some people say, well, it's got a screw top versus it's a real cork. Who cares? Sometimes,
Boone's Farm we used to have when I was a kid. I don't know if you did. Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh boy.
Annie Green's. I don't know what it was. Boone's Farm. Yeah. Apple. Who knows? It was like I was a crazy 21-year-old. It's like.
So we had, Dr. Leipzig on talking about geriatric medicine.
Right. That's correct.
If some of the singers of the 1960s revised their hits a little bit with some new lyrics to accommodate baby boomers kind of becoming a little in the geriatric range.
Right.
The new releases would probably sound like this. I'm just going to read you the name of this. I'm not going to sing it.
Come on.
Ringo Starr, I Get By With a Little Help From Depends.
Oh, no. Hey, come on, audience.
The Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Hip? Roberta Flack, The First Time Ever I Forgot Your Face.
Oh, really? Or your name?
Johnny Nash, I Can't See Clearly Now. Paul Simon, 50 Ways to Lose Your Liver.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry.
This one, the Commodores. Once, twice, 3 times to the bathroom. It's like the Komodo doors.
We have a revolving door in ours. Okay.
Leo Sayer, you make me feel like napping.
Oh no.
The Temptations, Papa's got a kidney stone.
Oh my.
ABBA,
Oh.
Denture Queen.
Oh my. Oh my God.
I can't see this one. It's too low on
No,
my
it's too
on
low.
my progressive lenses.
That's
Helen Reddy, I am woman, hear me snore.
oh God. No.
Oh mercy.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. All right, Leslie Gore, it's my hormones and I'll cry if I want to. And I will sing this one. Willie Nelson, on the commode again. Just can't wait to get back on the commode again.
Oh my God.
So there we go. Oh my.
Those are pretty bad.
I thought
The
those were
fact
hilarious.
that you even found them and you had them, I am a little concerned.
You know,
about some
I
of that.
finally got 8 hours of sleep.
Uh-huh.
It only took me 4 days, but whatever.
Hands on those buzzers,
Okay.
please. Please don't pop those buttons until an answer is exposed.
You know, scientists recently placed a 10-piece set of matching Tupperware in a sealed chamber. When they opened it a month later, the chamber had 24 lids that did not match any of the 6 remaining containers.
I believe that so much. Wow. Oh.
You know, smart TVs,
Uh-huh.
you know,
they're
they're
smart.
oh my gosh, and they're so thin right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, you know, a real smart TV would increase the volume when you started eating chips.
That's right.
And I don't get, you know, some of these signs, you know, there was a song, signs everywhere,
Or
signs,
sign.
you know,
Yeah,
that was
yeah.
from our era.
Yeah.
So there was this sign that was spotted and it says, caution, water on road during rain. I'm thinking, do we
Okay.
have to tell people that?
That's it. Like what color was George Washington's white horse?
Yeah, exactly.
You were thinking, weren't you?
So here's some marriage tips, you know.
Okay.
If your husband leaves his clothes on the floor, it means he doesn't want them. It's okay to throw them in the trash. I'll be back tomorrow with more marriage tips and advice.
No, you won't.
Here's another, you know, we were talking about geriatric medicine. Here's my brain at 3 a.m. I can see you're trying to sleep, so I would like to offer you a selection of every memory, unresolved issue, or things that you should have said or done today, as well as in the past 40 years.
Let me help you along. Oh, no.
Do you know potatoes make French fries,
Yeah.
chips, and vodka? It's like the other vegetables aren't even trying.
No. What? I guess I didn't know that potatoes made vodka. Those crazy Russians.
You know, and you know, parents, if you want to teach your teenager how to be responsible and really appreciate, you know, working and getting paid, you know, I paid my 15-year-old $10 to do the dishes. Then on his way to the bathroom, I mugged him because it's my job to teach him life lessons.
Wow. Gosh, tough room here. Tough room.
And this was a recently discovered fun fact that women spend more time wondering what men are thinking than men actually spend thinking.
Wow, that's so true.
And, you know, we all have that one friend that we can't put on speakerphone because we don't know what's going
Oh,
to
yeah.
come out of their mouth.
I got one. I got a friend like that.
So,
And I'm always trying to help him and straighten him out, but it never works.
so let's see. My husband and I, this is from a woman, she wrote this in. My husband and I decided never to go to sleep angry at each other.
Uh-huh.
We've been awake since last Friday.
Oh, oh my God.
And, you know, people sometimes have trouble parking.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's like they need to go right between,
Yeah.
you know, and
Right.
not be on one side or the other so the door doesn't get banged.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody left this on a car in the lot, and it says, many 3-year-olds have trouble staying within the lines. Maybe if you practice coloring this turtle, it will help you with your parking.
That's true. That's or park sideways. You'll take up 4 spaces
Yeah.
instead of 2. Yeah.
So we'll close with this one. Fuel
Oh.
prices
Yeah.
are so high that I went to the car dealership and test drove 3 cars to run my errands. Follow me for more money-saving tips.
Wow.
Well-
what's happened to you? It's the aging thing, isn't it?
Yeah. That's all for this hour. Thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode, you can listen to additional shows at stlintune.com. Consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Podchaser, or your preferred podcast platform. Your feedback helps us reach more listeners and continue to grow. Thanks to Bob Berthasell for our theme music and co-host Mark Langston. We thank you for being a part of our community of curious minds. St. Louis in Tune is a production of Motif Media Group and the U.S. Radio Network. Remember to keep seeking, keep learning, walk worthy, and let your light shine. For St. Louis in Tune, I'm Arnold Stricker.